And then you want to check if you can hear us, everything works.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'm assuming people are getting back from the coffee break. I joined in maybe 20 minutes ago and they went for a break. So I'm assuming they're taking their time.
So, Ozanka, is that how I say it? You're in New York this morning?
I'm in New York, yeah.
It's
Bit
what,
early
5 in the
here.
morning.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right. Have you had your coffee? And Ivan, where are you today?
I'm in Sofia, so that's
Okay.
1 hour, no, 2 hour difference from Brussels.
Very good.
It's 2 hours?
I think so, yeah. So, oh no, it's 1 hour, sorry. Getting confused.
It's still dark out here.
So I think you guys are proper AI experts, I believe, right? That's your day job working on AI. It's not really my day job. It's something I'm interested in. But I'm more of a headhunter and interested in comms and public affairs. But that's what you both do, right?
I do training, so I'm not a
Okay.
programmer. I don't program on Python, so I'm not developing LLMs from scratch. I'm training people and developing strategy how to adopt it, and we have someone else who's doing the hardcore programming, let's say.
Okay.
We have a software that helps people learn how to integrate AI in their work. How
Good.
did you get interested in it, Mark?
Well, I'm a bit of a nerd, so many years ago, I actually developed a internet tracking tool, which I sold to Microsoft. So I guess I've kept an unhealthy interest in technology, but I'm no expert. I'm an
It's an
amateur.
exciting. What I usually tell people when we do our training sessions is that you don't have to be an AI expert. You don't have to be developing LLMs or AI tools to benefit from AI.
Yeah.
You have to figure out how to find the right things that make you more productive, efficient, and kind of becoming literate is really being able to keep up with everything that's happening. And as the new models come in, knowing what's relevant for you, what's not.
That makes sense. And I think that's the scary part for many people is like there's so much coming, isn't there? It's like, well, what do I
There's
spend my
so
limited time on?
much.
No,
There's so
there's a lot.
much.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think there's so much AI washing and so much things going on that claiming they're AI. People try it, they get discouraged, they get confused. But at the end of the day, I think there may be 10, 15 tools that you can just start using that would definitely improve your efficiency at work. And other than that, it's a lot of noise.
Yeah. Well, 15 is already a lot though, right? For most people.
I'm saying 15 because it depends a little bit on the function because they might have
Right.
a different training set. So then the output would be more suitable for a particular function. So if you're coding, you use Claude. If you're
Right.
writing content, you can go to ChatGPT. If you want to produce images, you go to Stability or Midjourney. Like it depends a bit on the function you have. Um, so that's why it might be a little bit more than just one or two. But at the end of the day, there are a few that are doing a really good job, and you just have to get familiar with it. And at the beginning, there is a steep learning curve, but other than that, it's simple, I think.
Yeah.
And when you do, Mark, I'm curious, when you do headhunting, how do you like, are you looking at the technical skills or are you looking at something in particular when you're hiring now people, or are companies basically what I'm
I
trying?
actually, I actually think we're live. I see us speaking on LinkedIn.
Oh yeah? Or
But
okay,
okay, we're speaking on the same topic.
that's true. Um,
So
oh,
how do we? Well, there you go. LinkedIn is probably LinkedIn tuned in. It's listening to us because LinkedIn is definitely a key tool for us headhunters. I think many times it would be difficult to do our job without LinkedIn. I mean, back in the day. I'm not sure how they did it with Rolodexes and business cards stapled on bits of paper to figure out which people they knew. But yeah, I think there are some very specific skills. I mean, we'll probably talk about this, but I've had to look for a Polish-speaking online payment policy expert or a German-speaking financial services expert. So they can be really very specific skills that we're looking for. And LinkedIn is obviously one of the key tools that we use to find those people.
I just
Bless you.
messaged Nelly.
Thank you.
I don't have the phone of Victor, but
I guess he'll come in and moderate us shortly.
so
We'll be
Buzanka,
ready
can
to
you tell
start
me a
in
little
2 or
bit?
3 minutes.
Oh, yeah, okay. So Buzanka, can you tell me a little bit more about the software you have developed for like choosing how to adopt AI? I'm just curious.
Well, the first part starts with exactly what you were saying, finding the right tools for you.
Mm,
There are 12,000 tools out there at the moment, and many are what people call GPT wrappers.
right.
But some of those GPT wrappers are actually built in a way where they serve a specific use case. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's really about finding what works for you and then figuring out how to produce the right use cases. That's the first step we help with. Find the right tools for you and stay up to date with the right tools because that changes.
Mm,
And then once you have that, it's basically producing different use cases. So when you have a bigger team using it,
mm,
you want more of your employees to experiment with it. There is an experimental aspect of it before a manager or an owner makes a decision on, okay, here's my tech stack, here are the tools we're going to be using, here are the use cases.
mm,
So we enable that, and then as things change, we continue
mm.
supporting it.
Yeah, that
What
sounds
about
good.
you?
That sounds exciting. And a follow-up question, if you don't mind. So the challenge we had is figuring out the ROI. So how do you know how much time to invest, what tools to invest in, and then calculate back how much you're going to earn in return? So are you doing that
Yeah.
now, or are you planning to do that?
We are doing that, and just to kind of notice, I was at an event yesterday, and it was with OpenAI, Hebia, Runway,
Mm,
and no one has really figured out how to do ROI.
mm,
The way that we do it is we keep track of how many tasks have been impacted
mm,
with AI.
mm,
So say you have, as a company, you have like 100 activities that your employees are involved in. You start augmenting 20% with them with AI. Over time, we can keep track of how much time that's saving.
mm.
But right now, we keep track of ROI with the use cases and how many use cases out of everything you do you've managed to augment with AI.
Hmm. Yeah, we're having a similar approach, I would say, at least with the first part where we are choosing some tasks, and then we're doing also interviews with at the moment at least, or when we do the training, we can basically they can come back to us and says, oh, this takes me 30 minutes to do, and now with AI I can do it in 15. So keeping track of those, but still I find it challenging to put a number to it. So that's why I was curious what's your approach? And this is on a task basis, but if you go to a larger company, then that gets infinitely more complex and
Yeah.
challenging to do. And
How
also,
do you do it? How do the training even?
sorry.
How do you do the training?
So we started with a questionnaire, and this
Mm-hmm.
questionnaire is first identifying the needs by function. And then once we identify the needs by function, then there is a bit of manual work well, we have the modules ready, but at the moment we do it manually, let's say, to
Mm-hmm.
put the right modules to the right needs. And then usually we have a training. It depends whether it's 8 hours, 12 hours, or 16 hours, depending on what the complexity or what the employer chooses, and also depending on the function, because some functions might take longer to, for example, if you want to produce realistic images, or if you're in architecture and you would like to create a 3D of something that you have drawn, that takes a lot more time to train the people how to use it and all the different caveats. So that might take longer, but if it's something about content, that could be a little bit faster. And then we do the training. And for some of the companies, they also ask us to develop a particular chatbot that can help them with either internal policies or with
It's like
legislation.
custom GPTs.
Right. Yeah. So the simple solution would be create a custom GPT with the OpenAI API, or just use their platform, depending, and then distribute that to employees. And then the more complex ones is just download an open source model, try a few that you think might work best, and then someone starts to train it and prompt engineer. But that usually takes a lot longer, and it's a lot more expensive. So it's not an option that many choose.
Yeah. Experimentation is a really important part of this whole process, and I think the main part with choosing to start experimentation now versus in the future is you don't want to stay behind, because the longer you wait.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings on, well, mixed signals from the market on that. I have clients that they understand it, that it's important, yet they don't
I
choose to
think
implement it.
we're
I think we're starting.
Oh yeah. But that was a really nice way to get to know each other a little bit more and our opinions.
Which develops educational programs, including those for generative AI. They're officially accredited by the Bulgaria's Ministry of Education. And also Ivan is a manager of the incubator and accelerator at the Institute Gate, part of Sofia University. His support in generative AI upskilling also goes beyond simply education, as he supports growth of startups in the spheres of AI and big data. Next to him, we have Mark Dober, a headhunter, author, and a consultant specializing in communication, public affairs, and association leadership. He has recruited many senior professionals in public affairs in Brussels and around Europe, and he worked with over 100 European association leaders, being voted European Consultant of the Year by Public Affairs News, as he also authored numerous reports on public affairs and communications. And our third participant today, and a wonderful contributor to our toolkit, is Bozhanka Vitanova, or Bosch, how friends call her. She's a co-founder and CEO of TeamLift, empowering individuals and leaders to seize the opportunity of the next technological revolution. They deliver transparent, actionable insights on how AI is reshaping jobs, ensuring everyone has the tools and knowledge they need to stay relevant and thrive. She's prominent in academia, commercializing more than 30 academic inventions, setting up innovation centers, and also being a Fulbright scholar and a One Young World ambassador. Thank you, dear panelists, for being here with us today in this format. And just a quick word, what we're going to talk about is really now using what you've heard about how AI is applied in public affairs sphere, in communications, in business operations. We're going to really talk about this AI-enhanced workforce and how we're going to navigate these new skills and strategies that emerge in the new AI-driven, AI-affected environment. So I want to start with really this topic of new skill set and adapting to AI-driven workflows. And Bosch, I want to start with you here, talking about what technical and soft skills are becoming essential as workplaces become more AI-enhanced.
I think the main skill that's so important nowadays is figuring out how to learn something through experience. So you know that skill where kind of like a new tool is in front of you, and over time you intuitively know how to approach it, how to test it out, how to see if it fits within your work or not, and kind of overcome that resistance with dealing with something new. I would say ability to experiment, ability to learn are the two most important skills at the moment. When we look at the technical skills, that's an interesting topic because a lot of that is changing. I think right now with technical skills, what I believe is taking your technical skills, whether that's coding or doing data analysis, or Victor, in your case, knowing how to work with social media and figuring out how to enhance those using all of the tools that are available out there. So kind of AI enhancing your technical skills in a way.
Thank you. Thank you for kicking off our discussion. And a follow-up, which maybe one can take here, is what are the challenges that organizations usually face when coming to upskilling that Bosch just mentioned? What is your advice to this organization as to how to overcome these barriers, maybe workplace resistance that we heard also and about in the previous panel?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is fear, fear of the employees, and fear also.
I'm sorry, can I just pause you for a second? We'll just increase the volume here in the hall so that everybody can hear you well.
Okay, I'll just try to speak a little bit closer as well.
Giving
I
you
hope
some
now it's
extra
better.
time to think.
So first, thanks for having me. And second, I think the most important, the biggest challenge, let's say, is fear, of fear of change and fear that someone might fail at the beginning, because there is a steep learning curve at the very beginning when you adopt a new tool, being in this case AI. Even if you work with an intuitive AI tool like ChatGPT, at the beginning it might be frustrating how to get the right prompt, how to get the right output. And then if you go to a little bit more complex tool where you need to produce images, there might be more frustrating. And literally every word in the prompt is important. So that might be frustrating for people, and they might feel, oh, I'm going to fail. I don't want to try a new tool. I'm used to doing it the old way. So basically, fear of a change is the biggest factor. And I think when it comes to management, I think they setting the right vision and the right processes. Because the vision might be we would like to adopt AI and automate this and those tasks. But if organizations don't set the right processes to support people, they might still fail, because people need to have, let's say, if it's experimenting with an AI tool that Božanka just mentioned before, there needs to be a process for a feedback loop. So people try it, they experiment with it, then they have feedback. So what is the feedback loop back to the management so that they can make a decision if a tool makes sense or not? And finally is resource allocation. And I've seen so many examples when both leaders say, we want to adopt AI, these are the tools you need to try, but they don't set aside resources. And here resources is not only money, but also time. So I think a great example I've seen from one CEO, he said 1 hour per week, you're going to experiment. And it's a part of your working hours. So if you work 40 hours, 1 hour of those 40 hours, you literally have to only experiment. So you're basically paid to experiment and then give results back. So resources might not only mean giving someone the opportunity to take a course, it might also mean making sure they have the freedom to experiment during work hours, so the employees feel motivated that they're learning a new tool, and then speaking back to management what works and what doesn't.
Great. And I think a lot of people resonate with the problem of finding time, especially in association leadership. And here I'm coming to you, Mark, is moving to kind of our second pillar of this discussion is already on the organizational level. How you see leadership driving AI readiness? And do you see these structural and cultural shifts that are needed for organizations to integrate AI? Do you see them in your experience with Brussels leading organizations and beyond in EU in general?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the question. Yes, I mean, I think AI has been around for a long time, since 1956 to be precise, but it's really become more widespread in the last 15 years. So subconsciously, we've been using AI for a long time, and it's really taken off now with generative AI. We did a survey last year of 600 public affairs professionals in Brussels, and we asked them, how many of you are consciously using AI tools like ChatGPT in your daily work? And at that point, so it's only summer 2023, 39% said they did. This year, we asked the same question to the same community, and the answer was 80%. So I think we probably don't need to ask that question next year, because it will probably be close to 100%. And even since we asked that question in the summer, I suspect it's climbed upwards. So it is very prevalent now. People are using these tools, playing with these tools. And I think that reflects a market need, and also some instructions from the leadership. And I think for the first time, I'm beginning to see in job specifications AI skills. So I'm just about to launch a search for a very senior corporate affairs leader running public affairs in over 50 markets. And in the brief, one of the things I discussed with the senior management there was understanding and sensitivity to AI tools. How they're going to incorporate AI across the region, across the European, Middle East, and Africa region. So it's happening. I think, as always, you get, with any technological advances, you get leaders and you get laggards. And I think in some trade associations, for example, in Brussels, you might see some old school directors general who perhaps don't believe in AI and don't think it's too relevant. And then you'll get some real innovators. So it's still a little bit uneven, but I mean, I think the direction of travel is certain.
Yeah, and drawing on this and on you saying, it's definitely happening, I'm circling back to Bosch and Ranga, if I can ask you to share an example of an organization like having successfully overcome this balance between innovation and day-to-day operation, because I'm pretty sure, in TeamLift, there is this challenge of people coming in and saying, okay, AI is around us, but I've tried this and that tool, and it actually is not what I need. How do organizations find the right tools? How do you help them find them, identify those bottlenecks, and really make sure that it brings that efficiency instead of jeopardizing the day-to-day momentum or workflows?
Victor, maybe you can help me out with this one. You are one of our users, identifying the right tools. There is a period upfront where, to what Ivan was saying, you want to invest in this experimentation to identify what makes most sense. And then once you have those tools, you have those use cases, of course, you need to have the business case for it. Where we're seeing a lot of organizations starting from is from their customer support centers. There is a lot of efficiency which can be unlocked. It goes up to 70, 80%, where basically with the right strategy, right training, right tools, a customer service representative can handle a 70, 80% higher volume, which means that customer satisfaction goes up by a lot, people wait less on the phone. So that is something that can contribute directly to an organization's, what really matters at the end, customers being happy and purchasing the product. So a lot of that has started happening. I believe that next wave is going to go into sales, marketing people. There is a lot that can be optimized within those processes, since that's where the existing Gen AI models work pretty well. I know there are a lot of communications people in the room. I think that the communications function is a very interesting one because there are many repetitive tasks or parts of kind of doing research, collecting information that can be very time consuming, which AI is supporting a lot. Something interesting that's also coming up is people are looking for non-ChatGPT generated content where human skills are really starting to shine. So I'd say, Victor, to answer your question, I think customer support, marketing, sales are functions where we're seeing it a lot. For communications, I think that the benefit of figuring out how to shorten the time that you spend on time-consuming tasks can really be you get very, very good at the things that are kind of human, and you can express a message in like a very appealing way where the person on the other side can see that this was not ChatGPT generated.
Thank you. And bouncing back to Mark here, do you in your job, particularly with the recruiting and headhunting aspect, do you see already people with AI skills on their resume, on their CV being targeted more actively now in the Brussels circle or in public affairs circle in general, Mark?
They're not necessarily putting it on their CVs, but it's certainly a question I like to ask in an interview is, what's your opinion on AI? How are you using AI? Because frankly, if someone doesn't have a good answer to that, then it shows they're not intellectually curious and they're not on top of a key trend in their industry. So I expect top candidates to have an intelligent answer on AI and public affairs and communications. But maybe just a broader point on that is, I mean, I think fundamentally the success in communication and public affairs has not changed. It's about delivering the right information to the right people at the right time. AI is a set of tools that can support those objectives. So the right information, there's all kinds of tools that can help you research better content, improve your content. You can, the right audience is, there are all kinds of tools which can even predict which MEPs are going to vote in a particular way based on previous voting records. And then at the right time, I mean, that's a critical point, understanding timing of a legislative process or whatever. And the other point is, I think if we look at it from the other side of audiences that we're trying to influence in communications and public affairs, there's a mini revolution going on in politics and journalism. So, I mean, it's no secret that Donald Trump was elected partly thanks to AI and lots of AI generated memes. And similarly, AI was a key part of the Democrat strategy to get their votes. And similarly in journalism, I think what we're seeing is a revolution in journalism where journalists have very little time to research stories. In the old days, they would have a day or two to research a story before they publish. Now they literally have an hour or two, and they'll use AI tools to research those stories, come up with quotes, facts, and figures, and then publish. And then now they're even being replaced. Axel Springer replaced several hundred journalists last year with AI. So I think we need to keep abreast of all of these things.
Thank you, Mark. And you've touched on this very important aspect of human AI collaboration across industries. And here I want to come to Ivan and ask you to comment on what are the ways in which you see teams enhancing productivity through this collaboration. Like, do you see, or maybe you encourage this in the education programs that you're leading or in the startups that you're supporting, to encourage this human, and in what ways do you encourage this human AI collaboration? Do we see processes being revamped completely or just altered a little bit and kind of sprinkled with this artificial intelligence assistance?
Mm-hmm. So overall, I've seen research that 25% of the tasks people spend on can be automated with AI. And this sounds like really impressive, but what we see in practice, we need to take small steps. So I think of it as a human in the loop, meaning that the AI you can think of it as a senior employee and you as the CEO. So you're giving very concrete instructions to this AI model. The AI model is coming up with certain recommendation, content, analysis, but there should always be a person in the loop at the very end to verify the information. And as the previous panel mentioned, some of the figures might be wrong. So then that goes back to the first questions. What are the skills you need to have? You need to have critical thinking and be able to validate data quickly. And second, knowing which tool to use to validate data, do market research, or write the content. And coming back to what Bojanka and Mark said, in communications and in marketing and sales, I think those executives or those employees can automate a lot of the boring tasks and then spend a lot more time on the creative things, like how do I communicate exactly this message? What is the visual? How should I place this ad? So actually, as we automate some of those more boring or tedious tasks, that allows people to spend more time on the creative tasks and really think outside of the box. Just because the tedious manual work of validating information, maybe writing, is taken away with AI. So it's basically, instead of starting with a blank page, you can start with something written in there and then put your creativity to work and be able to rearrange it a little bit and change maybe a little bit of the text here and there, choose the right graphics that might resonate with the audience the most, and then you have there you go, you have the perfect product, or the perfect pitch, if you will, for your product.
Thank you. And Bojanka, coming back to you and switching the gear a little bit here and talking about a little bit of a future outlook and kind of future-proofing talent, future-proofing your skill set. What does skill, resilience, and professional agility mean for professionals now in the AI-driven world? Because the tools change and the innovation cycle is really becoming, it's condensing. Like before the innovation cycle, we saw it being like a year, now 6 months, and who knows, like next year we'll see tools releasing like new models every 2-3 weeks. So how do we stay always with the right tool? How do we monitor these changes? And how do we stay agile as professionals? Bosch?
You're on mute.
Sorry, I was muted. I've heard of a software that does exactly that. If I can do a shameless plugin here, we are building a software that does exactly that. It's called TeamLift. I think that the most important part in here is gonna be to be able to kind of stay in the know, not ignore all the information that's coming your way without getting overwhelmed. So without kind of just jumping into different things, dabbling a bit here, dabbling a bit there, kind of staying up to speed, knowing what's relevant to you, and then experimenting with the tools that are really right for you. And I think over the past year and a half, we went through this big innovation cycle where just a lot came out there. So now is a pretty good time to kind of catch up with everything that's happened and really gain this ability to kind of find the signal in the noise from everything that exists, be able to identify, okay, what are one or two tools that can really help me be more productive. There's something very special about the first time when you yourself change your workflow and you end up being able to complete something in 15 minutes when it previously took you 4 or 5 hours. There's a lot of kind of satisfaction in that when you figure it out yourself. I think once you go through that process a couple of times, you will start understanding AI has benefits, it has limitations. It's not this magical solution that can do everything. I like this metaphor of AI is your employee and or like a team member. At the moment, in most cases, it's kind of like an average team member, but kind of like a team member that's never going to say no, even when it's hallucinating. It's always going to give you an answer. It's going to try it and do something. So you're in a role where you're like, okay, I have this enthusiastic team member that wants to do a lot of things. What are some of the things I can offload to it? Did I answer your question, Victor? I feel like I answered
Yeah,
multiple
thanks.
questions.
Yeah, thanks. And coming back to Mark, and Mark, you have extensive experience with the leadership in the industries that are relevant to the audience we got here in person, and you yourself, have been leading Dober Partners for a while now. What are some of the best practices over time to support continuous learning, not only in the AI context, but just to remind our audience here and online, is like, what are some of these sustainable, healthy workplace practices to support continuous learning with the teams, and how can leaders support more like middle and junior members in this upskilling process?
That's a good question, and I'll probably lean on Ivan because I think training is more of his skill set. But I mean, just a few observations. I think, frankly, the school of hard knocks is probably one of the best ways to learn. It's you learn by doing, and there's a difference. When I look at candidates for top jobs, I look at three things: personality, knowledge, and skills. And knowledge is, can be acquired through classroom learning or this kind of event, for instance, but you only learn a skill once you apply that knowledge in a real life situation. So I think it's a combination of those things. And in Brussels, there's obviously lots of environments like this where you can learn things, but really it's the application of that. I teach martial arts, so I've got quite a bit. I've been doing martial arts for over 40 years. And I can teach you theoretically how to knock someone out, but you actually only learn it by doing it. So I think that's it. It's a school of hard knocks. It's a very simple answer, but I think everyone can relate to that. But I think training
Thanks.
is under pressure, and I suspect training budgets are under pressure. We did some research this year in terms of what are the most required skills by public affairs practitioners in Brussels. And interestingly, not surprisingly, number one was AI and in public affairs, the use of AI. So everybody's trying to figure this out. And it's becoming much more, it's less about trends and the macro view on AI. It's really what tools can I use and how can I use them? What's best practice there? I think that's what people are really eager to learn. And then on that chart where we asked people what they want to learn, the second was actually negotiation skills, and third was data analytics, which is a whole other subject in itself. So there's lots to learn, and there's lots of ways you can learn, and no doubt AI is going to help us learn new things. But maybe I'll defer to Ivan a little bit there on his perspective.
No, that's great, Mark. Thank you. And Ivan, I think the last question on my list before I open the floor for the questions for the audience goes to you, is really, if you could, compare and contrast for me the individual learning path of a professional versus, inviting specialists for trainings for the team as a whole. And do you have experience with both in your capacity at Skill Catalyst? And what would, will you say what's more efficient, and maybe even how can an individual really sync up his or her own individual efforts with something provided in the workplace?
So I would always encourage teams to participate, and even the best would be when we have cross-functional teams participating, because their roles are connected, and it's really I've seen really insightful and really interesting discussions when cross-functional teams are in the same room trying to solve a certain problem. we usually we show them the tools or a particular set of tools, and then there's always some part of the training where they try to solve a problem together. And the magic happens when cross-functional teams start to discuss what works, what doesn't. Similar to what one of the speakers in the previous panel was mentioning, like the prompts, if two people from the same team use different prompts, the results would be different. So it's really important on aligning the whole team, what prompts work, what doesn't, what potential hallucination and potential mistakes. So I always encourage to do it in teams and always focus on tasks that they literally can start doing it the next day. Adding up to what Mark mentioned a few minutes ago, you learn by doing. And the only way to start doing it is to solve a problem for yourself, that the AI to solve a problem that you have daily and you can start doing right away. And then your teammates also know what kind of problems they can solve, how you're approaching it. And if you receive a result from one of your colleagues, you have critical thinking already where to look. So we always do it in teams, and we set a common vision. So going back to having a common vision and a process for collaboration, how I started. So that's how I'm going to end as well. You need that, and you need to bring cross-functional teams together, ideally also with management. So then they have the same vision, the same process, they know how to collaborate together, and they know together how to make the most of AI.
Thank you so much. And I'll shift to our big cross-functional team called the audience here today, and ask if anybody wants to also address our speakers with something they're curious about as to the topics of workplace, training, upskilling, or future-proofing your organizations with the new technology. Yep. Oh, we have a second mic, right? Oh.
Yeah, hi, Bisera. We heard a lot about like what is being done, but we didn't hear, or maybe I missed it, of how are we doing that? Like, how are you doing these things? What practically do you engage in as steps? Can you share something about this?
Maybe one of the speakers wants to take it. Bożenka,
I can,
maybe
yeah,
I
can go with this one. I can go with this one. I think if we really go step by step, the first step I would recommend you go into is look at your activities. So kind of look back on this past week and go through, what do you actually do on a daily basis? Write it out and see what are the things that are most time consuming. What are the things where it would be nice if you were able to, improve that process. When you map those activities, go as much detail as possible to understand what your current process today looks like. And then look up some tools for those activities. Start with one or two, and start using it to do your activity in a different way. Note down what works, what doesn't work. If it is a tool that's famous, you can also kind of go online and see how other people might have used it, tips that they have on what's the best prompt that works with this tool. So pick one thing, stay with it for a few weeks, and get it to a point where it's starting to impact your work in a meaningful way. If you do this, if you kind of go through these 3 steps, at the moment in the world where people are with AI, you're going to be in the top 1% of people who know how to use AI.
And There was a question there. Thank you, Baran. Okay.
First.
Maybe it's not so much a question or question comment, I should say. So I work in communications. I've been doing corporate agency and now trade association. And Mark, this might be going towards your direction, but hearing the panel before and hearing the speakers now, I feel a little bit at a loss for words in a sense that, in Brussels, in my personal opinion, there is a sea of creative, talented, thoughtful people. There's also a sea of post-Brexit Brits who are remaining here, Irish, Canadian, American, who are native. And when I look at my peers, both in corporate companies and trade associations and agencies, they're leading. Most of these people are leading the comms groups. And so I think AI, while helpful in certain situations, I mean, Mark, you were saying you're looking for people's skills, or you mentioned this into, CVs and whatnot. Are people really focusing on this, or so much more about trust? You have Elon Musk, who's even come out against AI. I mean, how much trust are people really putting into this tool? You have the young people, as mentioned before, who are now relying on the internet, who now can't really write in real life, who can't critically think, in my personal opinion, looking at some junior people in my sphere. I mean, in a way, I see this much more of a, you're taking away, at least in the Brussels bubble in my world, you're taking away so much creative, thoughtful teamwork, collaboration, and bringing people together. I don't know. I'd love to hear your reaction, maybe much more than a question.
Mark.
So I think there was a question there about native English speakers. Interesting. Yes, I agree with you. There's a sea of creative, talented people there, and many of them are native speakers of other languages. But I think it's fair to say in the past, native English speakers dominated, let's say, many communication roles. I did actually some research recently for a client who was looking for a native English speaker, and I found a lot had left Brussels. There's been somewhat of a Brexodus, Brits going back to Britain. And actually, if you look at most people in communications, most of them are employed by the institutions, whether that's the European Commission, European Parliament, and all the different agencies. There are literally thousands of people. And when I look through that list on LinkedIn, because you can put language and put communication in the title, you can see where they come from. And actually, very few are native English speakers. And again, that's probably a direction of travel somewhat. And as these tools make it easier for non-native English speakers to write, almost flawless English, then that's better. I would say that, however, that for communicators, written output is absolutely key. And we still do writing tests for candidates, even for senior positions, so for directors general. And we might fix like half an hour or something on a weekend. We'll send them a question, and then they have to come back and give a written answer. Now, they probably do use AI tools these days to have a quick review, but we're testing strategic thought and other things, and being able to express that in a written format. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. I think Ivan had another perspective as well.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I just wanted to add a few things. So first, I think of AI as something that empowers people. So it gives them extra tools to be more efficient, which overall, if we look on a macro level, would increase the productivity gain by country. So that's first. Second, when AI came at first, we were thinking that it's going to make programmers irrelevant. This didn't turn out to be true. And the interesting fact is that since ChatGPT became mainstream, we can see actually the viewership of Stack Overflow, which is a forum where technical people go to ask questions and get answers. So the viewership of Stack Overflow went down because a lot of the developers are now using AI. But the interesting thing is, as soon as there is innovation in the programming languages or a new language becomes very important, it would again mean that people would go to these forums and communicate between each other. And AI is trained maybe on 10 or 15% of all the information we have. So you can see of AI as something that's helping you, but at the same time, we as humans communicating to each other would still remain very important, because we can have an extra information that the AI doesn't have. And this is where human in the loop, which I was mentioned before, is very important. And just overall, if we look back at the industrial revolutions that happened before, some of the workforce was automated, some of it was displaced, and every time something like this was happening, like it's today, we were feeling fear of a change. But if we look back, we can see, and Goldman Sachs had this research, like I can find the exact chart, but you can see new jobs created versus automated jobs going back to, I think, 1970. And you can see that on average, those are canceling out. So basically, new jobs are being created as some are being automated. And I think something like this would happen now as well. Some jobs would be automated, but there would be new opportunities and new jobs that we cannot even imagine would be there. Like if we go back to the agricultural revolution, we had a tractor that's automating some of the manual labor, but then we had to have a new industry that's maintaining the tractor that emerged. And similar thing happened with automation in factories. So I think similar thing would happen now as well, and we just need to be, optimistic and just try to learn new skills, because AI would automate some of it, but at the same time there would be a lot more new opportunities, and if we look for them, we can catch them. If we think negatively, we would not catch them. And just one last comment on Elon Musk, because that's important. He didn't say he's against AI. He was advocating for open source AI. So basically with open source, you can look at the model, the training data, and the weights the model has, so you can understand it. And OpenAI first had an open source model, then they closed it. So that was the whole thing. He was not against AI in general. He was against this particular model being closed, because he thinks if it's open source, people can learn and can adapt, and basically the acceleration of AI would be a lot faster.
Yeah, thank you. I think this gives me a good opportunity to wrap up our panel here, to get back on track with time, and to give you a little bit of opportunity to network post our panel. Just if I was to kind of underline the key insights and maybe merging them a little bit with what was said in the first panel, is really stay transparent, but be the master of your job. I think like we really heard the importance of training and staying on top of recent innovation. And if you are leading a team or leading an organization, I think like what we heard in the panel that I had the pleasure to moderate is really bringing the training to the house, and rather than having your employees or your team members hide the use of AI, allow them to collaborate and explore together. This will bring the efficiency. This will bring, this will boil down to some of your team code of ethics, team practices, team best ways to do it, and a shared, feeling of responsibility for the use of technology that is helpful. And I'll pass mic to Nelly to present the results of the content machine that we launched with the ideas in the previous break, and see what it generated for Valeria.
Valeria, how are you doing? So we had, about 2.5 hours to create some content for you. We're going to show you what we could do in that amount of time. All right. So these are your social media posts. I would suggest to also open the visuals and show you directly. So this is one little slide. Go ahead. One. Told that this is 2 minutes, so we're just in time.
And then I believe this is the AI generated newsletter. So from just your idea that you're approved, we have a funnel, kind of a reversed funnel with AI gradually expanding the idea and us approving it and proofreading it every stage. And we end up with a whole newsletter with the subject, title, an intro, subsections, ending with a call to action in the end and a sign off. Again, I mean, I invite you to revise it later, you know, in detail if you're curious. And then same is for the blog. You see the same funnel expanding from just an idea that you approved a mere 45 minutes ago, almost to an hour ago. And then the machine basically generated the whole blog, again, with the subsections, with the insights that are open sourced from your website or your other communication channels, and is tailored to the voice, which we were able to digest also from your previous communication materials. So that's basically what done in the span of 2 hours from you submitting, you know, the ideas, you selecting the ideas from a pool, and in a short period of time, you get social media posts with visuals either in photo or video format, which we generate by Lumen 5. And then you get a newsletter and a blog post, and it's basically your average monthly content sorted in a span of a couple of hours. Yeah, so as I said, just not to keep everybody reading it on the screen. If you're curious, you can proofread it as to how well it fits to your organization's individual communication goals. And then if anybody is curious to talk about how this really works for us, because we're using the same for our social media practices, please, you're welcome to mingle in the back with a cup of coffee, and we can talk more. I thank you all. I thank all the panelists that were with us today. And yeah, good luck with your AI journey.